talk to someone who's covered Eli Manning, who's covered the Giants, who's covered the NFL. I've known him for a long time. Great human being. We welcome on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, Dan Graziano of ESPN. What's up, Dan?
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good, man. Now, you just flew back from the Crescent City, right? That you were there to witness in person that New Orleans 49ers game?
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, like, just from the very beginning, just like a laser show. And then, it was on the 49ers sideline for the last 2 minutes, and the roller coaster of emotions down there when that was all going on was really something to see up close. So, yeah, that was fun.
Well, I know
that energizes you,
Yeah, here in Philadelphia, I think they would love to see a team be able to score more than 40 points in a game and look like that and have, guys making plays like George Kittle. I wanted to ask you, as we start off, the whole Eli Manning factor. And I was talking to Ryan, my co-host, and Josh about hearing Boomer Esiason last week on his morning show talk about when he was his last year of his career. He was the Bengals backup to Jeff Blake. The Bengals were horrible. And then Blake got hurt the last 4 games of the year. Boomer went back in, and they won all 4 games he started because he was just carefree, relaxed, and that enabled the team to play looser. Do you kind of see that potential of an impact with Eli now taking back the reins here for a little bit?
I think it's a legitimate theory, and I think given what Eli Manning has accomplished in his career, that it's not out of the realm of possibility that happens. But, this is a guy that I don't think that, like, the mental part of the game was ever an issue for Eli anyway, right? Like, he was always kind of a cut-it-loose, carefree kind of guy. He just hasn't played well really consistently in about 3 or 4 years. So if there's something inside of him that could propel him to that kind of finish, again, given his pedigree, that's not a huge surprise. But given the way the last couple of years have gone for him in terms of effectiveness, I think it would be at least a mild one. It's a fascinating story. I mean, again, in Philadelphia, I'm sure, all they want to do is win the game. Like, they don't care about the fascinating storyline. But from an outside perspective, a neutral perspective, what Eli Manning does over these next few weeks, whether he's auditioning for his next job, whether he could actually get a team to sign him and give him a chance to play again next year, I think is very interesting.
I think what I find funniest, Dan, is that I've heard it from Eagles fans, from Giants fans, from media, that the idea that Eli coming in can kind of stabilize the offense a little bit because Daniel Jones has been such a turnover magnet. And when we're talking about Eli Manning, who's led the NFL in interceptions 3 times, is now being considered the guy who can stop the turnover problem.
Yeah, everything's relative, right? I mean, look, Daniel Jones is turning the ball over, I think, because he's a young player who hasn't yet learned the techniques he needs to learn to protect it. And, one of his big problems is not just interceptions, but also fumbles. And I think, I was talking to Norv Turner a few weeks ago about Kyle Allen and how he was fumbling at the beginning, and then they got that ironed out a little bit. Now it seems to be back. But he's talking about how the specific things that a young quarterback has to do to train himself to protect the ball at the NFL level. Like, if you're going to take off and run, you need to take 3 or 4 steps before you even think about cocking your arm to throw it because those guys are closer to you than you're used to them being. So stuff like that he has to learn. Whereas Eli, obviously, by the time in year 16, I mean, he's well established what he is. So I have no idea how he's going to play. But in terms of stabilizing the offense, remember, the main reason they went to Daniel Jones earlier this season was because they felt like his mobility, Daniel Jones's mobility, would allow Pat Shurmur and that offense to do more of what it wanted to do and maybe offset the offensive line and protection issues they were having. So that stuff hasn't gone away. Eli did not get more mobile over the last couple of months, and the Giants' offensive line didn't get any better at protecting him over the last couple of months. So, what it looked like the first 2 weeks could raise its head again here tonight.
Dan, if you were absolutely forced to pick a situation here, which one would you choose? The Cowboys or the Eagles?
What do you mean, who I think will win?
Yeah, just the better situation out of the 2 dumpster fires. Which one would you lean towards right now?
Like, which team would I rather be right now?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, I'd rather be the Eagles. I got more games left. The Cowboys have already lost this week. So I think that's how you got to look at it. I mean,
yeah.
The Eagles still have hope to win this week's game. The Cowboys don't. They lost it. So that's where we are in this NFC East, man. I mean, like, it's going to come down to that Week 16 game between these 2 teams, and the winner of that game is going to probably almost certainly win the division. And honestly, like, if the Eagles lose tonight, there'll be no consoling fans, but I'm not sure how much damage will really have been done given the opportunity to play the Cowboys head-to-head here in a couple of weeks. Cowboys have the Rams next week. They're hot all of a sudden. So, I think it's just all based on that game. So who would you rather be? Where's that game? Is that off the top of my head? Is it a Philly game?
That game's in Philly.
In Philly. So I guess you'd rather be the East. But, man, two just of the, I think, the most disappointing teams of the season overall so far, for sure.
Yeah, they really have been. And, what's your thoughts on the job Doug Peterson has done from your viewpoint right now, as well as Carson Wentz's play? Because obviously here in Philly, the sky is falling.
Right. Well, so I think we went into the season thinking this was a deep and talented roster, right? That's all you heard. I mean, and that's not my evaluation. I mean, I talked to people who evaluate these things, and it was out there. Like, it was a popular opinion around the league, people who are smarter about this stuff than I am, and people are baffled. Now, Deshaun Jackson gets hurt right away, and all of a sudden you have this, like, super slow-looking offense, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that 33-year-old Deshaun Jackson was the key to the offense. Like, that's impossible, right? There's no way you could have built a team like that. But the impact of losing him seems to have been dramatic. I don't know whether they were expecting Nelson Aguilar to take a step. I don't know whether they were expecting Alshon Jeffrey to spend the whole season healthy, and if they were, I don't know why, because he never has. So I think, it's interesting that it's unraveled to this extent, because one of the reasons you like the Eagles coming into this year is you trust the people in charge to be creative problem solvers. And it seemed like once they lost one or two elements of the offense, they were never really even able to piece it back together. So whose fault is that? Is that the coach's fault for not adapting and changing? Is it the quarterback's fault for not being able to lift guys up to a greater extent than he has? I mean, you're a lot closer to it than I am, but I mean, it's baffling from the outside to see how the extent to which it's fallen apart. Now, all that said, guys, the Giants' defense is medicine. I mean, it is incredible. If you look back on this season, on like they were ready to run Kirk Cousins out of Minnesota. They play the Giants. He has not stopped lighting it up since he played the Giants. Mitchell Trubisky's career was done in year 3. He plays the Giants. All of a sudden, he's one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league. I'm telling you, if you cannot get right, if you're Carson Wentz and you cannot get right tonight against this Giants defense, then you have much bigger problems than anybody's even worried about, because this is the defense that has fixed everyone that has played it this year.
Yeah, but with the Eagles' luck, Dan, they're going to be allergic to this medicine.
I'm telling you guys, this is the bellwether. If they can't score points tonight, they can't score points.
Well, that kind of goes to the point we were talking about earlier, Dan, before you joined us, and that was the Eagles almost have more to lose than they do to win. If they win, it's like, well, you should beat the Giants, and you still got to win 3 more games. You still have to beat the Cowboys. You haven't beaten them in 2 years. If they lose, and you know what Philly's like when the Eagles are just like mediocre. If they lose and fall to 5-8, you don't want to be here, man. I mean, bridges might be on fire. Babies falling from. I mean, it's just terrible.
It's going to be Bane's world. Bane's going to be running.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing because, like, you're right. In the standings, it's actually, as crazy as it sounds, it's not that important a game. They're going to get Dallas head-to-head. Dallas has not run away from them, can't run away from them, and, they're still going to have the opportunity to win out and win the division no matter what happens tonight. But, yeah, they're not going to want to deal with the noise that will result from a loss to this 2-10 Giants. Do you know that the Giants' last win came on the same day as the New York Mets' last win? You guys know it? It's September 29th.
That's amazing.
The New York Mets have won a game more recently than the Giants have because their game started later that day. So, yeah, I mean, if you lose to that team, I mean, but there's a team that lost to Miami Dolphins last week. So, you lose that game, you can lose any game. I mean, I know the Dolphins are playing hard and all that, but, I mean, they're a terrible, terrible team, and the Eagles couldn't beat them in spite of having a double-digit lead. So, the problems are real. They're just in a very fortunate situation with the way this division is this year that they have the opportunity to get it corrected before the season ends.
Talking with Dan Graziano, ESPN. Dan, is there a way you see or a play for example, Saquon Barkley finally had a 100-yard game last week, and it looks like he's starting to round back into form. Darius Slayton is a guy who, I know he's a rookie. He's got 5 touchdowns, and the Eagles, they have a problem keeping good, speedy wide receivers in front of them, as we've seen all year, and then last week with Devontae Parker. So is there any kind of formula you see for the Giants to be able to come out with a win tonight, other than just that's the NFL and, you know, any given Monday?
Well, I think the Giants' formula for success has to be Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think he's the difference-making player that they have. I mean, Darius Slayton has had a nice rookie year, 5th-round pick, looks very promising, looks like that might be a find. And you're right that a speed receiver can maybe burn the Eagles' secondary, but then you have to wonder now, you know, can Eli Manning get the ball to him? And I think that's been an issue with Eli the last couple of years. And Daniel Jones is throwing a better ball these days in spite of the turnovers. I mean, his deep ball is one of his strengths. So you do wonder if that's a part of the reason Slayton's had success. But I think if you're the Giants and you want to lock it down on offense, it's got to run through Saquon Barkley. Look, he's been banged up for much of this year. He says he's healthy. He had a good game last week. If they are going to win games here in the last month of the season, it's going to have to be with the offense running through him, which I thought was the point the whole time. I thought that's why they traded Odell Beckham, and they wanted to build the whole offense around Saquon Barkley. But then, you know, he got hurt, and they just haven't been able to put it together. They're having one of these seasons that you see, and, you know, Philly fans are fortunate. You don't often have this season there, but they're having one of these seasons just sort of unraveled right away, and they haven't been able to get it back together at all.
Well, that leads me to my next question. I mean, you know about the association that Pat Shurmur has with the Andy Reid guys, with Doug. I mean, there's a million of them out there. A, do you see this not ending well for Pat Shurmur? And B, how quickly would he be an Eagles assistant coach if he winds up getting fired by the Giants?
Yeah.
Actually, do you think he'll get another head coach? I would think he's not going to get another head coaching job.
I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to bounce right into another head coaching job like Adam Gase somehow did last year. And, you know, you've seen, I guess Chip Kelly did way back with the 49ers, right? So you do see it from time to time, but I don't think Shurmur having flopped a second time will be that guy. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the Giants are going to do. It's trending toward, you know, being a situation where we're looking, you know, for them to make a change, but they have a quarter of their season left to play, right? So, I mean, there's time for Pat Shurmur to put some stuff out there that argues his case. Right. But if they decide that he's not the right guy for Daniel Jones going forward, they'll make a change.
All right, real quick before
if they do, I think Pat Shurmur's an offensive coordinator somewhere. I think he's got that kind of respect around the league. And frankly, as an offensive coordinator, he's had that level of success around the league. So he may just not be a head coach. We've seen that on both sides of the ball, defensive, offensive, where guys are very good at that job, but not the big one. And for whatever reason, Shurmur has not had success when he's tried to run the whole thing.
All right, real quick before we get you out of here, you just saw Jimmy Garoppolo have one of his signature breakout games. If you had an MVP vote and you had, you know, your 3 choices, Russ, Lamar, or Jimmy G, where are you going right now?
You didn't say George Kittle. That was my vote after yesterday.
Hey, we could throw him in there. That'll be historic.
No, I think it's Lamar. I think it's I've been a Russell Wilson guy for most of the year. I just thought he was elevating the team and probably working with less than Lamar was. But the last month or so, I think Lamar Jackson has separated himself. Garoppolo is red hot and he's playing great, but I think there's a lot going on there that, you know, sometimes guys are victim of their circumstances in a good way. I mean, his team is so good around him. The defense has been dominant up until yesterday. And, the run game is such a big part of what they do on offense. So I just think when you look at the Baltimore Ravens and what they're all about, that the way in which Lamar Jackson has energized them, the way in which they built the entire thing around him and it's working, I just think he's the definition of most valuable player right now. And I think it'd be hard to take the award away from them, barring some crazy events transpiring over the next 3 weeks.
All right, great stuff, Dan. Thanks a lot, man. We really appreciate you jumping on with us.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dan Graziano from ESPN joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.